of that. So when we looked at that, it was pretty obvious to us that the normal way that the armor is used in RPGs is something that isn't going to necessarily correlate one for one, but what it is a wonderful opportunity for us to accentuate the reasons why you will have the armor in the video game, and we can really amplify that. So as Richard says, finding armor is great. It will change the way your character looks, but it will give you a mechanical doodad to play with, an extra kind of feature, an extra mechanic that your character can now do, which allows you to kind of swap in and out as well. So if you have access to multiple armor sets or multiple weapons, you're able, as Richard says, to kind of find these builds, find these little kind of combos that work together, and you can help really skew your character hard in a direction, or you can try and maintain a bit more of a balanced build, and it just gives you a lot of options to play with. But fundamentally, it's a really nice way for GMs to kind of reward players for exploring, for taking on enemies, for interacting with the world, and it gives them a mechanical benefit for that rather than just a pure story.
It also poses certain questions to players. You know, you only have limited slots for equipment. You have 5 active slots, that's what you're wearing and carrying, and then you have 15 slots to fill up. So you basically got 20 slots. Armor, weapons, they all take up different numbers of slots. So how much are you carrying with you? What are you taking, and when are you going to use it? You know, you really have to work out what is the best sets of armor, weapon combos to keep with you to change into when, you know, a big fight's coming up. So it's also about learning how your character operates in the world and how effective you're going to be against certain types of monsters.
Oh, it also looks like we might have had a little tech issue at the start there. So I guess we can cover the PDF point again if you want to. Yeah, it looks like we missed out that part. But yeah, so everyone joining us, hello, hi. I'm with Matt and Rich. We're just having a little chat about Dark Souls, the role-playing game. If you've got any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat. More than welcome to. We did start off, sorry about that. It looks like for some reason it didn't kick off right at the beginning there. But we did just briefly touch on the PDF version of the game that will be available to you guys as on release. Do you want to just mention that again, Rich and Matt?
Yeah, happy to. Basically, we've set it up so you know, as I think people rightfully expect these days with their RPGs, if you buy a physical copy, you'll get the free PDF. We're pretty much there with Bits and Mortar, so that if you buy it at your FLGS, you will also get the PDF because we love friendly gaming stores. Fanboy 3 will ever remain my spiritual home, and we want to make sure that if you make the effort to support them, we're supporting you too and them. So free PDF if you pre-order or when it hits retail.
Are you jonesing after a discount at Fanboy?
Well, if Dave is watching,
I mean, count me in, right?
We'll split 10% each, right? We'll split 20% discount, 10% each.
I mean, there are other FLGSs that we can try.
There are. Travelling Man in Leeds. They're listening.
Just write over a list. Where do you want a discount? But no, we love the LGSs. We love them. That's really good. That's really good news to know. There was a comment as well about minis. Do we have any news on minis for Dark Souls, the role-playing game?
Yeah, I mean, we are doing them. We are they are the minis you know and love from the board game, but we've taken out the kind of the ones which are most useful for role-playing. So and they're in new packages. They're more accessible. You're not going to have to buy a huge expansion that, if you're a role player, you're only going to be able to use, 30% of. And, even if you're a board game player predominantly, you'll still probably be able to get use of it. I mean, who doesn't want duplicates for painting, etc. So I think they're really going to boost the playability, but specifically the tactical combat element of the game. Being able to really use position and see on, on a game map, on a map with your minis, how pushing enemies, moving them around the board, using your abilities and spending your position to set up other people's attacks is going to be really, really vital. It's one of the core elements of how we've attempted to capture the Dark Souls tactical combat and preparation and learning routines in a kind of more team-based combat experience, so that it's about learning how you work with other players as well as learning how to beat the monsters. And the minis are really useful for that.
I can't remember if I shared it with you. I saw an interesting stat a couple of weeks back, but I think it's nearly 70% of games, or of the respondents, 70% of them were saying that their role-playing games now involve minis and battle mats. And I think one of the things that Richard and I have certainly seen and experienced with products like Epic Encounters is there's so much opportunity to create like really complex, interesting situations. So internally we call them combat puzzles. And what Richard's kind of talking about there is being able to kind of really tactically challenge yourselves within the world. So it's almost as if the camera's kind of like wide as you're exploring and you're seeing that, the fantastic landscapes and everything that's going on. But then when combat happens, you kind of like zooming in, and the maps and the minis just really help you focus in on that. And it's not to sort of devalue theatre of the mind combat, but I think that's a different experience altogether. And for that kind of real sort of crunch, tactical kind of where every decision is really important feeling that you get from a Dark Souls combat, having the minis there and the map really makes everything unequivocal. And in many ways, it makes it unforgiving, because I think theatre of the mind can be a little bit forgiving. It's easy for the GM to say, oh yeah, you're just about in range. Yeah, that's fine. Make your shot. It's like that isn't really like, if you've messed up and not positioned yourself well, then you don't, you need to reap what you sow, really. If you're smart and you position well, if you're there providing support to the other players, etc., the battle mat is there to really make it unequivocal what is going on and give clarity, so you're able to really focus on the combat that's happening.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, if you have like a giant monster that you can physically see, it's a bit more threatening, isn't it? Like, it's there, it's in front of you, it can hit you, it will hit you probably. Knowing Dark Souls.
I think what's interesting is as well is, if people watching or people who buy this role-playing game have Dark Souls the board game, then like Richard and I, we use those minis in our RPG games, and certainly during the development of this product. But we're quite lucky; we have access to all the minis. But the thing that's important to recognise is that when you buy the board game and that has the minis in it, you're buying the board game as well as the minis. But with this new way of kind of enabling people to get hold of the minis, is a way of us being able to say, well, if you don't want the board game, that's fine. You can buy the minis. The minis are packaged in a way that makes it very easy for you to start a collection and build out what you already have, to really tailor it to the kind of adventure that you're running in the Dark Souls world.
Awesome. That sounds great to me. And we had a very sort of similar question as well. Someone mentioned a GM screen, and if there'll be a GM screen available, and I guess attached to that question as well, we had a question about the GM toolkit. So that's more in the game itself, as to like, how what kind of tools are going to have at the disposal to create adventures.
Do you want me to tackle that one?
Well, no, I'll start if you don't mind. So the core book contains an extensive GM's chapter. So I've seen, is it Mudge and Silver Knight? There really is a lot of material already in that core book. There is adventure building guidelines. There are campaign building guidelines. There is advice on capturing atmosphere, techniques to ensure you are faithfully translating what Dark Souls feels like. Ideas about how to make combat work in the right way. There is tweaks for difficulty. There are guidelines and tables for building NPCs to make them feel authentically Dark Souls. It really is pretty thorough already. I can't talk about additional material that we're looking to do yet. I will say there is more that we are hoping to write. I've been setting some of that up very recently. So there is a whole suite of support materials that are coming down the pipeline. We're definitely not in this as a kind of one and done. This isn't a one book and we're out. This is going to be a line of really, really cool, really, really well made, well written, well designed material. And I think, as GMs, we're going to give you the ability to run amazing Dark Souls games.
One of the things that Richard and I absolutely agree on is having a almost pathological hatred for cruft and unnecessary stuff. And we really firmly believe that the experienced GMs and new GMs and players really need to be given the opportunity to get like carefully curated product that actually works and enhances their game. So in terms of the Dark Souls IP as an RPG line for us, the temptation to kind of just release accessory after accessory and thing after thing and splatbook after splatbook and everything like that, because the world is massive and the opportunities for us are almost endless for what we could do, is not the direction we want to go. We want to go down this carefully curated route. Will there be accessories like GM screens and dice and things like that? Only if they add and enhance your experience is the standard answer. Now, would a really well-designed GM screen enhance your experience? Probably. So is that on the cards? Absolutely, it's on the cards. But there are other things that I think I've bought from other publishers that I just get home and I look at and I kind of regret the $20 that I spent on it or $30 I spent on it. And I really don't want us to kind of go down that route with that. So as Richard says, in the core book, there's a huge amount of advice about how we feel it best to capture that Dark Souls experience. It's there for experienced and newer, less experienced GMs, but it's almost the launch pad for then, as we continue to talk about content. We've got so many different channels that we can do, in terms of our social media, our blog posts, video content, as well as publish content for purchase, for us to help layering on top of that. But it's really all pointing in the same direction, which is how can we create products and accessories that make your experience of this wonderful world the very best it can be.
Right on. Yeah. We got a question here that says, can we get some examples of what positioning can actually do in the game? Like, how important is positioning?
Certainly. Okay, so position can be used to certain core class abilities. You have to spend position to use. If you are casting spells, some spells come with position cost. They also come with upgrades. So rather than having to wait to level up before you can cast a spell at a high level, you can do that with position. You want to deal more damage with a fireball, you can do that with position. If you're in combat and you miss, you can spend position on a 1-for-1 basis to hit your target number. Let's say you roll a 2 and your target number, the AC of the enemy you're fighting is 15, you can spend those 13 position. I wouldn't advise it, but you could do that.
But it's situational, and it
is situational. If you're going to kill them, if you can kill them, spend that position. But still, even then, it's going to leave you pretty open.
Yeah, and it's all about. So this is how we model the attack windows that happen, and the windows of vulnerability and invul that you kind of get in a combat game like Dark Souls, the video game. So as Richard says, you're able to kind of mitigate the dice rolls. I'm now slightly conscious that I interrupted you, Richard, when you were in mid-flow.
No, absolutely fine.
I love positioning. It's one of my favorite mechanics.
I love it. You can also, you can spend 5 position, a minimum of 5 position to upgrade your damage. There's a reason for that. Lots of weapon skills allow you to upgrade the damage. So there's a minimum spend in order to upgrade damage. All the weapons come with their own position spends, as do shields, which allow you to do certain things in combat to try and give yourself that little boost, that little edge. But again, it's all about balancing how much you spend against how much damage you do, when you do it, what stage of the fight, and what the repercussions of spending that might be. So for instance, I've run a game fairly recently and everybody got very excited with being able to spend position and hit. And obviously when they hit a boss, he one-shotted 3 of them in the first round of combat. Yeah. Now it was a particularly difficult encounter, deliberately so, but it goes to show that if you get, for want of a better term, trigger happy, you're going to get hit in the arse. In the same way that if a tactic's been working in Dark Souls and you think, I bet I can finish this now, I bet I can just go in and wail away, and guess what? You'll end up losing and have to do the whole thing again.
Do you know, one of my favorite things with positioning is to make the 5-foot step, because it's so clutch. It's just that little reposition move, and it's worth spending the positioning to just get you in just the right spot. It's I can't remember, the amount of times that's kind of just made the difference, and it's really subtle. But I think the thing about positioning is it's also a way of allowing the ebb and flow of fights. And I think sometimes with other RPGs that we play, the fighting can be quite intense all the time. And the trouble is, when something's intense all the time, you actually lose out on the peaks and troughs, and it ends up becoming a little bit monotone. And I think having the peaks and troughs, the bits where you go in and then maybe you retreat a little bit, you kind of, bolster yourself up before going in again, it becomes a lot more tactical, a lot more important that you're making good decisions. And the fact that position actually is an unknown quantity when a fight starts is absolutely huge to the experience as well. It just gives you that frisson of danger that you need to kind of give you that edge. Because if you kind of go in and you end up on a low position, that fight suddenly takes a whole different connotation.
Awesome.
Sorry, James, just jump in on Indigo Dragon. No, you can definitely play this game theatre of mind.
Oh yeah.
The miniatures that we're producing are to aid your games and enhance them. They are not essential to play. You can still play this just sat around a table with some dice or online, however you want. They are not vital, but they are very, very cool, and they do really bring the game to life.
We're slightly biased because we work for a company that makes toy soldiers, and we have access to like thousands of them. But we, like this week, we're away on a design week. We'll probably be role-playing a little bit later on. We probably will do Theatre of the Mind, because it's just, actually Theatre of Mind is way...
Oh, one moment. It looks like we've just lost connection there. One moment, guys. I'll be back in just a second. We'll get back to your questions in a minute. Sorry about that. BRB.
Yo. I'm old and I forgot where we were at.
I'm also old, but
well, I think we're talking about theory of the mind, and we were just confirming that absolutely theory of the mind is very viable for this. And in actual fact, I think one of the best ways is, and I use this for a lot of role-playing games, not just Dark Souls when I'm running, is some fights you really want to run theory of the mind because they're a lot more powerful. And then other fights where you want them to have that real kind of tactical layer, that's when it's really cool to get the minis out. And I think variety being the spice of life is absolutely true for RPGs in many different regards, and mixing up how you present challenges to the players, I think, is really key. So my advice would always be a mixture of theory of the mind and tactical maps, and use them where they make the most sense for the challenge that you're trying to set up.
Yeah, I think that's a very wise sentiment. What we've tried to do is create a game that feels both kind of familiar and classic D&D RPG, and feels authentically Dark Souls. Now, those are, you know, different flavors, but they have a lot in common, and we've tried to blend them together, which means you can use this game to play, you know, quite a traditional version of D&D if you wanted. You can turn the difficulty right down. There are rules in the book allowing you to do that. You could port stuff across into a 5e game, but you could also go really, really hyper tactical and, you know, kind of hit every single beat of the Dark Souls, specifically Dark Souls 3. You know, each fight almost recreate how they work in the game. And I think the minis are very good for that, because it does allow you to have a greater kind of sense of scale and of movement specifically, and of what not moving properly, of not using those abilities can cost you if you don't get out of the way of, I don't know, the Nameless King and the Stormdrake, or the you know, Yorm when he's charging through. That's what I think what the minis enable you to really get a handle on. Mm. No, sorry, just to clarify, they're not fresh minis. They are being repackaged. So there may or may not. I can't guarantee, but I can say there may well be some slightly rarer minis coming back in a different packaging. But
awesome. There
aren't any new sculpts there. They are repackaged so that you're not having to buy. You know, if you just want one mini or a few enemies for a quick Friday night game, you're not having to buy the core box or a huge, you know, 50, 60 quid expansion just in order to get what you need. These are specifically designed to make accessing the minis easier for role players. But, you know, if you're a board gamer who wants duplicates, you can definitely do that as well.
Yeah.
Sweet. Just to let everybody know as well, the collector's edition pre-orders are live right now. If somebody could drop a link in the chat from the team, that'd be great. Yeah, you can go and get that collector's edition. I think someone asked as well, what's so special about the collector's edition?
Oh, well, how long have you got?
We got all the time in the world.
I mean, we could talk, and did talk endlessly about, you know, the different options for the gilting on the edge, and the weight of the paper, and the shine on the paper, and the way that the type of paper, so we knew how the ink was going to react. We could talk almost as endlessly about the color of the ribbons and the texture of the book itself, and that's before we then start diving into the really contemporary classic design of that black leather cover with that really powerful Dark Souls logo embossed into it, and then the wonderful kind of swirl of embers picked out in gold foil, just picking across the front to give you that little bit of texture, and that really real sense that when you pick up this book, and it is a heavy book, you've got something of genuine quality. This is a proper collector's book, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it.
It's very, very beautiful and special, and I have a spot on my frankly enormous wall of RPGs specially picked out for it. It's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah, it is a very, very pretty book. And as we mentioned, you can get those now. There's a link in the chat. The pre-order is up for the collector's edition. I believe there's a queue for it as well. So, you might want to hop in there and get your position. Other than that, I think you guys have probably got some stuff to get back to. Some very important stuff to get back to. Are there any last things you want to mention about Dark Souls while we're here? Favorite things?
My favorite thing is character generation, and how unbelievably swift it is, and yet how much flavor is dripping from the character by the time you've finished. I love it.
My favorite thing, this is a little weird writerly thing where the thing you like is the thing nobody else cares about. There are some, there is there is one third ed joke in one of the armor sets that really makes me happy. And if anybody spots it and tells me what it is on Twitter, I will send you something. Because it was really just for me, and I really enjoyed it. So that's my favourite thing at the minute. That, and just what an amazing job Elliot did on the layout. Elliot Smith is just the most beautiful book, and there's really nothing quite like that when you're a writer and a designer, and you've been working on, let's be honest, pretty dismal looking Word documents, and somebody turns it into the work of art. Elliot's turned the book into. It's amazing. So yeah, the collector's edition, and my weird little
everything
joke
about it.
Yep.
And there's a challenge for everyone in chat. If you can find that joke, ping it over to Rich. He's promised you riches beyond your wildest dreams.
I will send you something.
Yeah.
It won't be good.
Who knows what it'll be? Will it be something you want? I don't know.
Just be a curly worded note.
Yeah. Curly whirly and a chomp. That's what we're after. Well, thank you guys very, very much for spending the time with me today. I do appreciate it. Thanks to everyone in the chat for swinging by. I know we had a couple of little tech hiccups, but we in Dark Souls fashion, we got straight back up again and went back at it. But thank you very much, everyone. The collector's edition pre-orders are live now. There is a link in the chat. If we could post that link again, that would be awesome. Yeah, make sure to get yours in, and we're looking forward to seeing what kind of adventures you guys get up to in Dark Souls, the role-playing game. But thank you very, very much, everybody. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Matt. Have a good rest of your day. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Catch you later.
Can't wait. See ya.
We died. It's all over. We just died.
Finished.
Loxon particularly enjoyed my